Greetings and welcome to the Introduction to Astronomy. In this week's exploration of the solar system, we are going to talk about the Venus spacecraft and look at what it told us about the nearest planet to Earth. So let's go ahead and get started here. We can look at Venus Express, which was launched on November the 9th of 2005 and arrived a few months later in April of 2006 at Venus. The idea of it was to study the atmosphere and clouds of Venus. Now, Venus is unusual compared to other planets like Mars and Mercury, which we can easily study just by looking at them from even a distance or from orbit if we want to look at them up close. So the problem with Venus, I should say, is that Venus is completely shrouded in clouds, and we cannot see the surface whether from Earth or even from a spacecraft in orbit. So the idea here was to study the atmosphere of the clouds and make maps of the surface temperature of the planet. So some measurements can be made through the clouds, but actually looking through them, the only ways we can really see Venus's surface are the occasions where we've landed on the surface, of which there were just a couple that were successful, and through radar maps of Venus. So here was another one to study some of the outer properties of Venus. And some of the things that were found were, for example, superrotation. And that is that the upper atmosphere rotates differently than the rest of the planet. So the planet itself rotates extremely slow and actually rotates backward relative to the other planets in the solar system. However, the atmosphere takes only 4 days to rotate once, whereas the planet itself takes over 200. There's thoughts that there were current volcanic activity. This has still been a big question, and that can be based on sulfur dioxide levels measured in the atmosphere. So are there eruptions still going on? Well, it's still debated as to whether there are current volcanoes on Venus or if we are seeing remnants of previous volcanic activity. And it's been able to map the temperature profile in the atmosphere, which looks something like this, where we can see the various different properties and how the temperature gets extremely hot at the surface, but as you get farther up into the atmosphere, it is not. It actually cools off quite a bit when you get up just to 50 to 100 kilometers. It is drastically colder up there. It's only the very lower areas that have undergone the intense greenhouse effect that give it those extremely hot temperatures. Now, one of the other things that it did that you might wonder about is that it searched for life on Earth. Now, we know that there's life on Earth, so why would we want to search for life on Earth? Well, the idea was, could we, looking from another planet, looking back toward Earth, pick up the signs of life? And the idea is here, yes, we know there's life on Earth, so what are the signs that we would be looking for that would be very specific to there being life on Earth? So yes, Venus Express looked for life on Earth, helping us as we start looking for life with other planets that we start finding outside of our own solar system. The mission lasts for not quite a decade, ending in December of 2014 because of a loss of propellant. Propellant is needed to keep the spacecraft oriented and to be able to allow it to communicate with Earth. So once that is lost, the mission is then over. But nearly a decade of studying Venus and teaching us more about its atmosphere. So let's go ahead and finish up with our summary. And what we've looked at today was that Venus Express, as you might guess, was launched to study the planet Venus. It made detailed studies of both the atmosphere and the temperature profiles and found possible evidence for active volcanoes on Venus, as well as searching for life on Earth. So that concludes this week's discussion on the Venus Express spacecraft. We'll be back again next week for another exploration of the solar system video. So until then, have a great day, everyone, and I will see you in class.